Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you so much for watching today and welcome if you're new and welcome back if you're a returning viewer. Today I am going to be working in the Dina Wakley Ledger Journal. I haven't worked in it for a couple of weeks, I think. I like to skip between my journals and I decided that today I was going to focus on spring. The weather here has started to warm up a bit. The sun is out, the flowers are flowering, blooming, I guess, and it really made me want to make a spring themed page. So I'm going in to start with some collage from the Maremi collage books, and I've got Spring Stories, which was the spring book that came out last year, and I've also got some flowers from the Botanica book, and at the end I do use a sentiment that is also from the Spring Stories book. And for a change, I thought I'd start with collage. Now, I often build up a background first and then add the collage over the top of that background. But today I thought I'd try things a little bit differently. I do like to sometimes experiment with the way I put my pages together because I just find it fun to find new ways and to see if I prefer how I was doing it or if I prefer a new way. So I'm starting by cutting out the images, and again I'm doing something a little bit different to normal. Normally I cut really close to the edge of the design, but because I was putting the collage down first and then I knew I was going to add the colour in afterwards, I was able to be a little bit more flexible with leaving a little border around the edges because I knew it would get sort of disguised with my the following layers. Usually if I'm putting on at last, it's not overly getting disguised, so I try to be a bit more closer to the edges, and then I tend to chop bits off. So this time I managed to get all the little bits in more or less. So here are my cutout pieces, and I decided I needed to ground them with a little bit of texture from this masking tape and washi tape. Now the masking tape I do believe is a really cheap one that I bought at the range, but it might not be because everything gets chucked in with each other in my craft space. So I'm just sticking it down with a bit of the Liquitex matte medium. This is the professional one. Now I like this matte medium, but I would say that you do need to, if you're going to be using matte mediums or collage glues for sticking your images down, you need to think about the sorts of things that you want in it. Now, I like this one because it's very fluid, so I can squash it down, I can fling it about. You will see, I do fling it about. But this one has a little bit of a gritty texture to it. So that is something to be aware of because different mediums, is it this that has a gritty texture or is it the gesso? No, this doesn't have a gritty texture, but the gesso that I use in a bit has a gritty texture. So be aware of when you're looking at mediums in general, just like think, do you want something that is smooth? Do you want something that's got a bit more grittiness to it? Do you want something very fluid like this matte medium? Or do you want something that's maybe got a bit of a thicker texture for sticking down maybe heavier items as well as your paper? I mostly use this one for paper because it is a very sort of a fluid glue, which is essentially what matte medium can be used for, but it's also an acrylic medium that you can mix in with excuse me, use it with acrylic paints to water them down without watering down the colour. Now you'll see there my thing about that I am quite heavy with it, and I was a bit heavy putting the paper down. The paper is quite robust, but if you really go at it like I do, you might find that your collage paper tears. Now the little flower in his hand did tear, but because it is paper, because it is collage, I was able to just replace it, stick it back down. Nobody would know except you saw me do it. I decided I did want to put a little bit of washi tape down the seam of this book. This book, it's a fabulous book. I love this ledger journal. It's a reproduction of an old ledger that Dina Wakley found. I love the print on the pages. I love the paper, but I do put quite a lot in my journals. I don't worry about them getting full and wide open and buckled and all those things because for me it's a place for me to just play and express my my fun with my products, so I don't worry. But I would say that I do tend to try and put something down the seam the gutter in the page just to protect other pages and to protect it a little bit, because I know I have heard that some people's books have fallen apart where they put a lot of mediums and things in them. So just be aware of that to protect your book a little bit. I'm not even halfway through and mine is already starting to warp a little bit. So, you know, I'm not sure how well it's going to last me to fill the whole book, but you know, it depends on what you want. If you want something that's going to hold up and be pristine, I probably would say don't do an art journal. Do it on a separate piece, because art journals by their very nature will become very full, will become buckled. Doesn't matter what paper you've got in them. You know, even watercolour paper will buckle if you put a lot of wet media on it. I love just layering and layering things up and adding paint and watercolour and pen and texture paste. That's what I enjoy, and I'm not worried if my book one day falls apart. For me, it's not an heirloom. It's not something that I want to last forever. So I'm not worried about those sorts of things. But if that is something that is important to you, then I would suggest that you look around and find maybe ways of adding things that maybe don't make it as so buckled, or look for books with maybe a heavier sort of paper. You know, I hope that came across correctly. Right, once I'd stuck all these down, I did know I was going to use some water reactive type products, and so I wanted to cover up with a little bit of clear gesso. Now this is the one that's got a bit of grit to it. So if you do not like gritty gesso, I would not recommend Liquitex Professional. I like the grittiness. I like that it grabs my products a little bit more, and I can really sort of, you'll see in a minute, I'm going to use my Neocolor 2s, which is very unusual for me. I don't use them that much, but it grabs them a little bit more. So I had put all my Neocolor 2s in tins again, and then put them somewhere that was slightly out of my view, which meant that I really was forgetting about them. So I've gone back to putting them in a pot on my table in front of me so that I use them, and straight away that is what I did today. So you know, it works. Having things in my eyesight does work for me. Now, I wanted to use yellows, oranges, and spring type greens, because for me, that is what spring brings to my mind. So I started off with the brightest yellow, and I will list all the products I've used in the description box below, as well as the colours that I've used. But I will tell you what colours I use. I don't know, I think I do use all the ones that are in my hand. The ones that are in my hand are lemon yellow, yellow, orange, light olive, yellow green, and then I do also add in a brown for some shading as well in a little while. But the Neocolor 2s, in case you have never come across them before, are a water soluble wax crayon, which sounds, every time I can't really get my head around how it's wax but it's water soluble. But there you go. It is. It's the magic of craft and art. Art and craft. Art and craft always sounds better than craft and art, doesn't it? The way, I suppose it's the letters. But so you can use them dry, but they are water reactive. So if you put down some crayon and then a bit later you went over with something with a water brush, it will water it out. It will move the lines. And as with all of these products, I don't think they're not permanent. So if you put them down and then later on you come back in with another product, you may move it. I find most products, if you let them dry properly and you're not too harsh over the top, they will more or less stay where they are. Again, it depends on the paper you've used. Now, I'm finding that these are moving really nicely with the water because I put the gesso down. I have found sometimes when I use the Neocolor 2s, that sometimes if I go straight down with a line of colour directly from the crayon, and then I try to water it out, depending on the texture of the paper, I can sometimes get the line left in the, once I've watered it out, it still leaves that line effect behind. But with this paper is quite smooth, and it's also got the gesso, so I think that really, really helped. So If you want to get that more watered out look and you don't want them lines left behind, I would say, like, think about the smoothness of your paper and maybe consider adding something like a gesso to prime your page to make it move. Gesso tends to help things to move more easily. And if you ever want to do things like lifting techniques where you're going to go through a stencil and lift paint and things like that, putting down a layer of gesso really helps because it doesn't soak into the paper so quickly. So I'm just going in. I liked the left hand side of the page better how I did it than the right hand side. I wished I hadn't added in the green to the top of the flowery side. So I do go back in and try and add some yellow around that top part. I wanted the green to be more down the bottom as a sort of a grassy look instead of sort of mixing in with the collage as well. I wanted the collage to have more of that glow of the yellow and the orange about it. And so I did give it a quick dry because as they were still wet, when I was adding another colour, it was mixing the colours, which I didn't mind too much, but I knew that I wanted to go in with a shadow colour now, and I didn't want that to really mix in like those yellows too much. Well, no, I added another bit of yellow because I was trying to cover up a bit of that green. I was trying to get that brightness back in a little bit, so that was why I dried it to be able to go over the top of that without it muddying too much. But then I did know I was also going to add in some of the brown, and I didn't want that to muddy as well. Right, so this is where I got the brown, and you see this time I'm actually taking the colour from the stick itself. Now, because they are a woodless product, as in they're not, you know, the pigment or the wax is not encased in anything. Well, apart from a little paper wrap, which you could take off. I leave it on just to protect my hands. But you can lift colour from it. You can also dip them straight into water and use them that way. Obviously your wrapper's going to get a bit so soggy after a while, but you can do that. They are a really nice sort of versatile product. I wouldn't say you necessarily need them if you haven't already got them and you've got things that do similar. So if you've got a lot of watercolour pencils or you've got something like the scribble sticks, having said that, I've got all the different things. That's because I just love all the different things. But what I'm saying is, it's not a need. You do not need them. But if you haven't got any other sort of water-soluble stick products, they are a nice one. They're not the cheapest. They're by Caran d'Ache, and I think I bought the 30 set when we had a local art shop. It was closing down, so they were half price. To be honest, that was the only reason I bought them that day, was because it was such a good deal. I would probably now not buy another set. I would maybe add individual colours. But you can get most colours open stock as far as I'm aware, although not the new limited edition colours. They're in sets mixed in with others. That's a whole nother story. So if you want individual ones, maybe that's what I would say. If you wanted to try them out, you didn't know whether they were for you, I would say maybe buy, 2 or 3 of your favourite colours, or 2 or 3 that you knew blended well. I always say go for your favourite colours. If you go for your favourite colours, you're going to use them, aren't you? That's the thing. If you choose 3 colours because you think that's what you should buy, then you're probably not going to use them if it's not the sort of colours you would normally be putting into your projects. But you can always, try a few out, see if you like them before committing to, a big set. I know it works out more expensive if you buy things individually, but it doesn't if you find then you've bought a couple and they're not for you, then you've saved the cost of a set. So that's what I would recommend, but you do whatever suits you. I mean, I can't talk. I buy so many things. So I'm just going around. I didn't want to go around everything with the brown. I mostly wanted to go where I think there would be more of a shadow. So close into the boy, under his chin, under his arm, under the wings. And then, of course, where the ground would be, I really wanted to make that very, very clear. And you can build these layers up. So I was letting it dry a little bit and then going in again and taking maybe a little bit more pigment from my my crayon. You can also, like I say, you can put the crayon straight down. That gives you a greater depth of colour as well. I made sure this was all dry, and I should add that when you see me skip between layers, I am allowing things to dry. I don't always say it because, to be honest, I forget, and I'm usually moving on to saying the next thing. But I do let things dry. If there's ever gesso, it's allowed to dry. If there's texture paste, I let it dry before I move on. I'm not working on top of the wet medium. So I think that is quite important, that you do let things dry. I'm really terrible at being patient about it, and I do tend to use my heat tool, but the best way probably is just to let it dry naturally. Therefore, you know, you get that more organic drying process going on. Now, I knew I wanted to add something else in. I didn't want to add in any stamping on this project because I do love that text in the background, and I do feel a little bit like if I'm going in with some stamping, I need it to be very much a contrast to the text. There wasn't anything I thought I wanted, but I did want something. I didn't feel like the page was finished, but I didn't want to go over my images with any stenciling. So eventually I thought, oh, I know, I've got this little leaf stencil. It's by Crafty in the UK. It's a Dinkable. I think they come in sets. As I said, I'll list it in the description below. And just with a little bit of this green gold acrylic paint, this is the Decoart fluid acrylic, Decoart media. I just wanted to add something around the page, and I really feel that this made it for me. This was what then made me think, yes, that's what this spread needed. Now, I debated, did I want to put white in the leaves? And no, I didn't. I did it once. Luckily, I decided really quickly and wiped it straight off. And then I am just going in with some splatters. That's the Posca 3M pen in white, and this is the sentiment that's also from the Spring Stories book. There's a sort of a few towards the back, and I'm just gluing that down, and I wanted to make it blend more. I felt it stood out too much, so I got this blending brush which had a little bit of yellow ink left on it, and I just went over it just to blend it into the page a bit more. But then ironically wanted to make it stand out again a bit more, and wanted to give it a frame with the Copic Acrea in Sepia. So thank you ever so much for watching today. If you have enjoyed this video, do please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love it if you could subscribe as well. If you see that hype button, I think it's on the, if you're watching on the any app, I think that you get the hype button. I'm not sure. I get it sometimes. I don't get it other times with videos. I don't know why. If you could click that hype button, that really helps. Doesn't cost you anything, and it helps the video get seen a bit more. And at the end of this video, you will see a list of my lovely super supporters. They are my YouTube members, so a big thank you to them as well. And until the next time, bye bye.